welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into the story of a name that, well, it still echoes through history. Cleopatra. Forget the simplified versions you might know. She was a queen whose intelligence, her ambition, her political skill, it didn't just rule a kingdom.
No, not at all.
It fundamentally altered the trajectory of the ancient world, even challenging Rome at its absolute height.
Exactly. Her life, as we see in the material you shared from Cleopatra, Queen Who Reshaped History, it wasn't just a historical period. It was like a whirlwind of strategic moves.
Right.
Family betrayals, really intense alliances, and, ultimately, tragedy.
So this deep dive, it's all about pulling out the key insights from these pages, right? Understanding her upbringing, those surprising skills she had.
Yeah, how she wielded power, those legendary relationships, obviously.
And why her legacy is still so potent today.
It really is.
Think of it as peeling back the layers on a figure we all think we know the name of, but maybe not the sheer depth of her impact. So let's unpack the story that, well, reshaped history, starting at the beginning.
And the beginning is Alexandria, 69 BC.
Right, a city founded by Alexander the Great himself. And the source, it really makes the point of highlighting that Alexandria wasn't just, a capital city.
No, it was the ancient world's intellectual powerhouse. Seriously. Imagine a city that was just the absolute hub of culture, science, learning. The Library of Alexandria, it wasn't just a library. The book calls it like the ancient world's internet.
Oh, yeah.
So growing up steeped in that kind of environment, surrounded by knowledge, debate, all these diverse perspectives, it profoundly shaped Cleopatra.
So it wasn't just palace life?
Not at all. It was an education in global ideas. It fed her strategic mind, her ambition, right from a very early age.
And that intellectual environment, it clearly translated into a pretty exceptional education for her. The source talks about serious skills, not just like etiquette.
Absolutely critical skills for a ruler. The book emphasizes her mastery of multiple languages, 7, possibly 8.
That's incredible.
It is impressive on its own, but here's the really surprising bit from the source.
Okay.
She was the first ruler in her entire Greek, Macedonian, Ptolemaic line.
A whole family.
Yeah, to actually learn and speak Egyptian fluently.
Without needing a translator. That seems like a massive deal.
It's huge. Think about the strategic advantage. She could talk directly to her subjects, understand what they were saying, bypass intermediaries in diplomacy. She could connect with the culture she ruled over on a level none of her ancestors had bothered with.
Wow.
Plus, the book mentions training in philosophy, public speaking, and mastering how to use her voice, her presence, to command authority.
So she wasn't just handed the throne.
No, she was meticulously trained to rule.
Okay, so she had the brains, the training, the whole cultural capital of Alexandria. But the family itself, the source, makes it sound like a political snake pit.
Snake pit is pretty accurate. The Ptolemaic dynasty, founded by Ptolemy after Alexander died, ruled Egypt for over 3 centuries. And the source paints this vivid picture of a family just notoriously consumed by internal power struggles, betrayals, even murder between siblings.
Yikes.
Cleopatra was the 7th woman named Cleopatra in this line, growing up in this massive, opulent palace complex where danger was often, right next door.
And she experienced that danger pretty early on, didn't she? Became queen at 17, co-ruling with her younger brother, Ptolemy the 13th.
Yes, and there was this symbolic marriage, which was a common Ptolemaic thing to consolidate power.
But he was only 13.
Only 13. And the book describes how his arrangement just quickly dissolved into accusations and power grabs, mostly orchestrated by his advisors, his regents. The internal politics got so intense that Cleopatra was actually forced out of Alexandria by her own people.
Wow, exiled.
Yeah, this wasn't a gentle retirement. It was exile. It would have crushed most people, but the source makes it really clear. Cleopatra saw it as a setback, not the end.
So while she's in exile, the source says she's not just waiting around, she's actively preparing.
Precisely. She wasn't idle. She was raising an army, making connections, patiently waiting for her moment.
The right opportunity.
Yeah, and that moment arrived when a major player from Rome, Julius Caesar, showed up in Egypt. He was chasing his rival, Pompey.
Which brings us to that incredible, now almost mythical, meeting with Caesar.
The carpet scene. Yeah. The source recounts this moment beautifully, describing it as just this bold, almost theatrical move.
Because she couldn't just walk in?
No way. She couldn't just walk into Caesar's guarded quarters, so she arranged to be smuggled in, hidden inside a rug or maybe some bedding.
And then they unroll it.
Exactly. And out steps Cleopatra, not some desperate exile, but this charismatic, confident queen ready to negotiate.
Wow.
The sheer audacity of that entrance, as the book highlights, it immediately captivated Caesar. It sparked their famous personal connection, sure, but more importantly,
Politically.
it forged that crucial political alliance that would totally change her fate.
But Caesar backing her didn't exactly smooth things over with her brother, right? That alliance led straight to war.
It absolutely did. Caesar's support for Cleopatra triggered the siege of Alexandria. The Roman forces were initially outnumbered, but the source details how they held out under pretty intense pressure until reinforcements finally arrived.
And her brother.
In the fighting that followed, her brother, Ptolemy X, died, apparently drowned in the Nile.
So just like that.
Yeah. With her rival gone and Roman power behind her, Cleopatra was back on the throne and more powerful than ever before.
And the source even notes the birth of their son, Caesarion.
Talk about an improbable comeback, really. Orchestrated through sheer will and some very clever alliances.
And the source mentions she even took this newfound power, this status, all the way to Rome. She visited Caesar there.
She did. She stayed in Caesar's villa. And her presence definitely caused a stir in Rome.
I bet.
The source describes the Roman reaction as, well, mixed. A lot of people were uneasy seeing this powerful foreign queen, especially one with Caesar's child, right there in the heart of their city.
Right. Rumors flying.
Oh yeah, rumors and anxieties ran high. However, Caesar's respect for her seems undeniable. The book mentions he honored her by having a golden statue of her placed in the Temple of Venus.
A golden statue.
Wow.
Yeah. But that whole era, it ended abruptly with Caesar's assassination in 44 BC.
Right, the Ides of March.
Which forced Cleopatra to head back to Egypt, facing a whole new set of challenges in this suddenly chaotic Roman world.
And out of that Roman chaos, after Caesar's death, steps Mark Antony.
One of Caesar's most important generals, yeah. As Rome was kind of fracturing, Antony looked east. He recognized the immense wealth and strategic importance of Egypt.
So he needed her.
He reached out, seeking an alliance. And just like she had with Caesar, the source tells us she made an entrance designed to make an absolutely unforgettable impression.
Another grand entrance.
Oh yeah. Her arrival in Tarsus to meet Antony on this magnificent boat adorned like the goddess Aphrodite herself. It wasn't just lavish, it was a deliberate political statement wrapped in this dazzling spectacle.
And Antony. Much like Caesar, he was immediately enthralled. This relationship, like the first one, was just this potent mix of personal magnetism and absolute political calculation.
They formed a powerful partnership then. They even married, right? Despite Roman disapproval. And they had twins.
Julius and Selene, yeah. Their bond became the strategic cornerstone for both of them.
How so?
Well, for Cleopatra, it secured her throne, it gave her access to vast Roman resources, military might.
Okay.
And for Antony, it solidified his control and influence in the Eastern Mediterranean, which was crucial for his own power struggles back in Rome.
Right.
And the source describes how they projected this image of a divine, powerful royal couple, hosting lavish feasts, embracing Egyptian customs, ruling from Alexandria, living legends from a golden age.
But this Eastern power base and Antony's clear alliance with Cleopatra, that must have been seen as a direct threat by Octavian, Caesar's heir.
Absolutely. The tension between Antony and Cleopatra's faction and Octavian just escalated relentlessly. Octavian was very successful at painting Antony as being, under Cleopatra's sway.
The foreign queen corrupting him.
Exactly. Abandoning Roman values for Eastern luxury, turning Roman public opinion against them. It was a very effective propaganda war.
Which inevitably led to actual war, military confrontation.
Yes, the clash of empires, of ambitions, it all culminated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC.
The big naval battle.
A massive naval engagement off the coast of Greece. Antony and Cleopatra commanded their combined forces, but, well, they suffered a crushing defeat.
Devastating.
The source details just how devastating this loss was. It signaled the complete collapse of their whole political project and forced them to flee back to Egypt, their hopes just completely dashed.
So back in Egypt, after that crushing defeat at Actium, with Octavian basically closing in, what does the source say were her final moves? She was known for her resilience, right?
She absolutely fought to the very end. The source recounts her desperate measures, reaching out to potential allies, exploring escape routes.
Trying anything.
Yeah, even attempting to negotiate with Octavian. The book mentions Octavian actually offered her a kind of deal, her life, maybe even her children's safety, if she would betray or eliminate Antony.
Wow. Did she consider it?
The source indicates she refused. She seemed determined to retain control over her own fate, her dignity, even in defeat.
Which leads to that iconic, incredibly tragic double ending.
It's just so dramatic and poignant. Antony hears this false news that Cleopatra's dead.
Oh, no.
And he attempts suicide, stabbing himself. But he doesn't die immediately. And the source describes this heartbreaking scene where he's brought to Cleopatra's monument, where she'd taken refuge, pulled up into her sanctuary.
For a final moment.
Yeah, for a final moments in her arms before he finally succumbed.
And Cleopatra.
Well, she's now captured by Octavian's forces. She understands his intention is to parade her as a trophy back in Rome.
Humiliation.
Total humiliation. And so she chose her own end. The exact method, well, it's still debated. Was it poison? Was it the bite of an asp or some other snake?
The legend says asp.
The legend favors the asp, yeah. The source explores these possibilities, but the powerful truth remains. She chose to die a queen rather than live as Octavian's captive.
And her death, it marked just this monumental shift in history.
It really did. With Cleopatra gone, the Ptolemaic dynasty, after ruling for over 3 centuries, it ended.
Just like that.
Egypt was formally absorbed into the Roman Empire, became a vital Roman province. Her children were taken to Rome, facing, uncertain futures.
But she got her final wish.
Yes, despite the circumstances, the source mentions she was granted a royal burial, laid to rest beside Antony, just as she had wanted.
Looking back at the whole sweep of her life then, the source you provided, it really drives home that she was so much more complex than the myths often suggest.
Oh, crucially. She wasn't just, a beautiful face or defined only by her famous relationships. The book really emphasizes her sharp intellect, her skill as a diplomat, her remarkable political acumen.
She knew how to play the game.
She absolutely knew how to navigate incredibly dangerous political landscapes, handle powerful men, and consistently played a long game. And she often won right up until the very end.
Yeah.
She demonstrated to the world, undeniably, that a woman could hold absolute power, influence empires, and really shape global events.
And yet, so often, she's reduced to just this story of seduction in popular culture.
It's a narrative that's persisted for centuries, hasn't it? And it often overshadows her political genius. The source directly challenges this, arguing that focusing only on the temptress aspect just sells her completely short as a visionary ruler.
Right.
I mean, think about the artists and writers she inspired. Michelangelo, Shakespeare. They were captivated not just by the romance, but by the immense power, the tragedy, the sheer drama of her life and her place on the world stage.
Her image keeps evolving.
Exactly. It's been filtered through countless interpretations over 2,000 years, but it hasn't faded. It just continues to fascinate us.
It's also worth putting her, maybe, within the context of women's power in ancient Egypt itself.
That's a vital point the source makes. Compared to women in cultures like, say, Greece or Rome, Egyptian women historically had significantly more rights and agency.
So she wasn't such an anomaly there.
Well, she was exceptional, but the framework allowed for it more readily. Cleopatra wasn't an outlier in the sense of being a puppet queen. As the book stresses, she was the real deal.
Fully in charge.
Fully in charge, making her own bold decisions, initiating alliances, and standing, toe-to-toe intellectually and politically with the most powerful men of her era.
And maybe that's why her story still resonates so strongly today, that power, that agency.
I think so. A combination of intelligence, charisma, elegance, and just relentless ambition. It feels timeless. She proved that leadership isn't solely about brute force. It's about strategic thinking, deep knowledge, resilience, and the courage to pursue your vision. Her story speaks to anyone who's ever wanted to make a significant impact on their world.
So going back to the material you shared, what really stands out is that Cleopatra wasn't just some queen from a dusty history book. She was this dynamic force of intellect, emotion, and action, whose choices just rippled across the ancient world.
Absolutely. From navigating those treacherous family politics to forging world-altering alliances and then facing devastating defeat, her life was genuinely epic.
Yeah.
She didn't just inherit a kingdom, she actively engaged with the most powerful forces of her time, and in doing so, she really did change the course of history. Her name, 2 millennia later, remains incredibly bright.
What's fascinating, though, thinking about the source material and everything we've discussed, is how much the story of Cleopatra, how much it's been shaped and reshaped over the centuries, particularly, by Roman perspectives, the victors.
That's a really important point.
It makes you wonder, when we read about her or see her portrayed today, how much are we actually seeing the queen who lived and ruled? And how much is maybe a reflection of the narratives that history shaped by those victors and later artists chose to tell about her?